All right, so get ready because we are diving deep into The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
A classic.
It is. And we've got some fascinating excerpts from our listeners.
Yeah, and it's a big book, so
Oh, yeah.
we're not going to cover everything.
Not even close. But we're going to extract some key principles and give you guys some actionable steps
Yeah.
to be more effective in your personal and professional lives. Ever feel like you're just spinning your wheels, putting the effort, but not
Yeah.
really seeing the results you want? Well, Covey might just have the answers.
And it's interesting because he doesn't offer these magic quick fixes.
Right.
He really urges us to start by examining our paradigms,
Okay.
how we see the world, because that shapes really everything we do.
I like that. It's like checking your mental map before you even start the journey.
Exactly. Imagine you're using a map of Paris to navigate London.
Oh, you'd be in trouble.
You'd be totally lost,
Yeah.
right? Covey uses this clever optical illusion, the one with the old woman, young woman.
Oh, yeah, you've seen that one. It's wild how you can totally flip your perspective
Yeah.
and see a whole other image.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do with effectiveness?
It shows that our beliefs and assumptions, they're often kind of working in the background, right? They're influencing how we see things and how we act.
Oh, I see.
So to create real change,
Yeah.
we have to look at those underlying paradigms.
So it's deeper than just putting on a positive attitude.
Much deeper. This is what he calls a paradigm shift.
Okay.
And a big one is moving from focusing on personality to focusing on character.
Oh, interesting.
It's about building that strong inner foundation
Gotcha.
based on principles.
So not just personality hacks and tricks.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
instead of just trying to hack your way to success with the latest, life hack,
Yeah.
focus on developing those core values.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we even know what principles to focus on?
Well, that's where the idea of the principle-centered paradigm comes in. Covey argues there are these universal principles, like honesty, fairness, integrity, things like that govern effectiveness, just like gravity governs the physical world.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
So these principles are like our compass
Yeah.
guiding us toward, true north.
Exactly. But there's a catch. We live in a deeply interconnected world, right?
Well, yeah.
So Covey argues that being truly effective means going beyond just focusing on ourselves.
Okay.
We need to embrace interdependence. He calls this the maturity continuum. We go from dependence to independence and then to interdependence.
But isn't independence a good thing?
It is. But think of it like this. You wouldn't try to play tennis with a golf club, right?
Sure.
You need the right tool. So independence alone just isn't enough in an interdependent world.
This is making me think of group projects at work where everyone's off doing their own thing.
Exactly. But before we can effectively collaborate, we need to master independence.
Okay.
Those are what he calls the private victories.
And those are the first 3 habits.
The first 3, exactly.
Okay, so let's dive into those, starting with habit 1. Be proactive. What's that like in real life? What does that look like?
Proactivity is all about taking responsibility for our own lives, for our choices.
Okay.
It's not just taking initiative, it's recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond.
Reminds me of that Viktor Frankl story that Covey talks about. The Holocaust survivor who found freedom.
Oh, powerful story.
Even in a concentration camp.
Even in the most unimaginable circumstances, right? We still have that freedom to choose our attitude,
Wow.
our response. So how does that apply to dealing with a frustrating coworker?
Yeah, it's not exactly a concentration camp.
Right. We might not control our circumstances,
Right.
but we can control our reactions. So instead of saying, my boss makes me so stressed, you
Yeah.
might say, I choose to focus on what I can control.
So it's that shift from I have to I choose to.
Exactly. Another key tool is focusing on your circle of influence.
Circle of influence. Yeah, I think I've heard that before, but can you break that down?
Your circle of concern.
Okay.
That's everything that worries you, like global warming or your neighbor's barking dog.
Right.
But your circle of influence is smaller. It's what you can actually do something about.
So focusing your energy where you can actually make a difference.
Exactly. That's where the power lies.
Okay.
Now, habit 2, begin with the end in mind, takes this even further.
Okay.
It's about envisioning your desired outcome before you take action.
Have you ever done that exercise where you imagine your own funeral
Oh, yeah.
and what people would say about you? Covey talks about that.
Powerful way to connect with your values.
Yeah, and figure out what really matters.
Right, because everything is created twice.
Oh, I like that.
First in your mind, then physically.
So, like, before you build a house, you got to have blueprints. Before you build a life, you need a mental blueprint.
That's the idea. And he encourages us to create personal mission
So,
statements.
like a roadmap. Yeah. To make sure you're headed in the right direction.
But knowing where you want to go is only half the battle.
Right. Still got to, like, actually take action.
And that brings us to habit 3. Put first things first.
Okay.
This is where we connect thinking and doing.
So it's not enough to just have, like, a vision board.
Nope.
Or a nicely written mission statement tucked away in a drawer somewhere.
Exactly. It has to become a reality. Covey says leadership.
Okay.
That's deciding what's important.
Right.
Has to come before management, getting things done.
So figure out your priorities before you try to manage your time.
Exactly. And he introduces the time management matrix.
I've heard of that.
It's a way to prioritize based on urgency and importance.
Okay.
And he says we got to focus on quadrant 2 activities.
Resar.
Important, but not urgent.
Oh, those are the ones that always get pushed aside.
Because they don't feel urgent, right?
Yeah. But they're the things that really matter in the long run.
Exactly. Planning, personal development, building relationships, those make the biggest difference.
Oh, man. I remember all those times I was so busy putting out fires that I never got to the things that actually mattered.
Covey says by focusing on quadrant 2, we master our time instead of being slaves to it.
Wow. Just those first 3 habits alone feel like they could change everything.
They're powerful.
They really are. But we got to talk about those public victories.
Absolutely.
The habits of interdependence. And I'm really interested in that emotional bank account concept.
Oh, great metaphor. We'll definitely unpack that next time.
Awesome. Can't wait. Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into the public victories, those habits all about interdependence. You mentioned this whole emotional bank account idea last time.
Oh, yeah, it's a powerful concept.
Can we start there? I'm super curious about that one.
It's brilliant how Covey uses that financial metaphor to describe the trust we build in any relationship.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think of it literally like a bank account. Deposits build up that trust, and withdrawals chip away at it.
So, like, if I'm always snapping at my partner or forgetting promises, those are withdrawals.
Exactly. Think about things that erode trust in any relationship, like breaking promises, disrespect, not really trying to see things from their point of view.
Ouch. I've definitely been guilty of some of those.
We all have.
So, what are some ways to make deposits?
It can be small things like a sincere compliment, remembering to do something nice. But some of the biggest deposits, really listening to understand.
I'm loyal, even when they're not around.
That's huge.
This makes me think of my closest friends. We don't always agree, but we try to understand where each other's coming from.
Perfect example. And those small, consistent deposits over time, they build a reserve you can draw on when things get tough.
It's like investing in the relationship.
Exactly. It makes those tough conversations easier because there's already that baseline of trust. Now think about this. Habits 4, 5, and 6. Think win-win. Seek first to understand and synergize. They're all about interacting with others. Can you imagine trying to do those with an empty emotional bank account?
Oh, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It would be. Like trying to negotiate a peace treaty when both sides already distrust each other, you need that reserve of trust to really collaborate and find solutions that work for everyone.
That's where habit 4 comes in, right? Think win-win.
Exactly. It's going into things believing there's a solution out there that benefits everyone.
So not one person winning at the expense of the other.
Right. It's the opposite of that win-lose mentality we see so often. It's having an abundance mentality instead.
I hear that term a lot. What does that actually mean in real life?
Believing there's enough for everyone, that one person's success doesn't limit anyone else's. From that mindset, you can be so much more creative in finding those win-win solutions.
Okay, I'm getting it. It's like instead of seeing a pie that needs to be divided, you see an opportunity to bake a bigger pie.
I love that. That's it, exactly. It's a whole different way of thinking. But a crucial part of finding win-win solutions is being willing to walk away if it doesn't benefit both sides.
Wait, really? Wouldn't that make you lose negotiating power?
Actually, it gives you more power because you're not desperate to win at all costs. You can be more honest, more open. That builds trust, and you end up with better agreements.
So it's knowing your worth and not settling for something that compromises your values or theirs.
Exactly. Which leads perfectly into habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It sounds simple, right? But how often do we really listen to understand? not just to respond.
Ugh, I'm so guilty of that. I'm already thinking of my response while they're still talking.
We all do it. Covey's talking about empathic listening, truly grasping the other person's perspective. Not just their words, but the feelings and needs behind them.
Like that story he tells about the dad trying to connect with his son who's struggling in school. The dad keeps giving advice, but it's not helpful. It's only when he really listens to his son's feelings that he can actually support him.
Yes, that's it. Jumping in with solutions often stops us from truly understanding. He talks about these 4 levels of empathic listening. It starts with mimicking content, just repeating back what you heard.
That wouldn't be very effective, like a parrot.
Right. The deeper levels are rephrasing to make sure you understand, reflecting the feelings you hear, and then combining both to show a deeper level of understanding.
So instead of just saying, oh, that sounds frustrating, you might say something like, it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated because you put so much effort into that project and it didn't get the recognition you were hoping for.
Yes. You're not just acknowledging their words, you're connecting with the feeling behind them.
It's like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Empathic listening shows you care.
It builds trust, makes them feel heard, and paves the way for better communication. So we've got think win-win, seek first to understand. How does habit 6 synergize? Build on those.
Yeah, good question.
Synergy is when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Creative collaboration that leads to something new and better than what anyone could do alone.
Covey tells this story about a class he taught where, unexpectedly, something magical happened. The students were so engaged and open to each other's ideas that they created something truly remarkable.
It shows the power of valuing differences and being open to possibilities. Synergy isn't compromise, where everyone gives up a little to reach an agreement.
It's not about meeting in the middle.
No, it's about creating a third alternative, a solution better than what either person initially imagined.
So like 1 + 1 = 3, or maybe even more.
Exactly. Synergy is the ultimate expression of interdependence. Collaboration unlocks possibilities that weren't even on the radar before.
Makes you realize how much we miss out on when we're stuck in our own heads, just trying to force our own ideas.
And it's so important today. With all the complex problems we face, we need that collective intelligence, that creative collaboration. Now, 6 habits down, but what good are they if we're burnt out trying to live them?
That's where habit 7 comes in, right? Sharpen the saw. The one that makes all the others possible. Honestly, it's the one I struggle with most. Never enough time for self-care.
Covey uses the analogy of a lumberjack sawing away at a tree, never stopping to sharpen his saw. It gets dull, ineffective. We're the same. We need to renew ourselves, physically, spiritually, mentally, and socially, emotionally.
So it's holistic, not just bubble baths and meditation retreats. But how do we find the time when we're already so busy?
We make it a priority. Covey suggests at least an hour a day for renewal activities. Not selfish, an investment.
Like putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. Can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And neglecting our well-being makes us less effective in other areas of life. So what fills your cup? What specific activities renew you in each of those dimensions?
That's a great question. I need to think about that one. But this conversation has given me so much to think about already.
We've covered a lot of ground, from paradigm shifts and emotional bank accounts to synergy and sharpening the saw.
It's amazing how connected these habits are, a real roadmap.
It is, but it's a journey, not a destination. The real test is in the daily choices.
Absolutely. We've given our listeners a lot to chew on. But before we wrap up this part, is there one final thought you want to leave them with?
You know what strikes me? These aren't just random tips.
Yeah.
It's like he's giving us this blueprint for a fulfilling and effective life.
I like that blueprint analogy. And it's ongoing, right? You don't just reach perfect and then coast.
It really is a journey. And the test is not just knowing this stuff in your head.
Right.
It's putting it into practice every day.
Makes me think of that quote, the way we do anything is the way we do everything.
Oh, I like that.
Like if you're rushing through breakfast all stressed out, you're probably going to bring that to work, to your family.
Absolutely. Covey wants us to be principle-centered, to ground ourselves in those timeless values, not let circumstances control us.
That sounds great, but kind of scary too, you know? It takes guts to stick to your values when things are crazy.
It does. The courage to be proactive, to prioritize what matters, to seek understanding first, to be okay with walking away.
But the payoff seems huge. Better relationships, a sense of purpose.
It's not about being superhuman. It's about aligning yourself with principles that lead to a good life.